Hi everybody, Hanu the Honda Mackinnon here, and as you can see, it's another He React video. So a little while ago, I made a face cam video like this where I was reacting to this CBR.com article about what were the bottom 10 worst He-Man episodes according to IMDB. And now I thought, just for, all things being equal, I might as well also look at what are, according to IMDb, the best episodes of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Oh, by the way, just a funny coincidence. I didn't plan this, but I am actually wearing my Skeletor shirt as I'm doing this. That was just a fun coincidence. And I get a feeling that this is not going to be as interesting as when I was looking at what they thought were the bottom 10 episodes. There were some that I agreed with, some that I did not agree with at all. And I also noticed that CBR's, their standards for these articles were not very high. Like, there were a couple of entries over there that had really bizarre wording and things. So I get, I think this was, this is made by a different person. This is by Julian Beauvais, whereas the other one was by Nicole something or other. All right, so I got a feeling most of these. So I have a feeling that most of these are, going to be exactly what I expect them to be. Actually, I think I want to stretch out the window a bit. Sorry, I'm tooling around with the window a little bit because you don't need to see the ads there on the side. I don't care about that, but all right. So the first one, to save Skeletor, and again reminding that because these are IMDb ratings, they're obviously aggregates of many people, so there isn't that what was it, the 7.2 or something was the highest rating for what was on the bottom 10. So it doesn't go even that much higher. 7.6 for To Save Skeletor, and yeah, I can see why this is a fan favorite episode, certainly. This is from a season 2 episode, and I have a review video of this. Now, if people remember my review video of this, is that I might have said that this really isn't one of my favorite episodes of the show. I like the premise. I really think the premise is really good, but I think the episode is just a little too goofy. Because it's season 2, a lot of season 2 episodes are very goofy, and that's kind of in its makeup and DNA. This is an episode that would have worked, I think, a lot better if it had been done a lot earlier during season 1, because that's when in the very beginning of season 1, there were a lot more like serious episodes, and I think this episode would have benefited from a more serious approach. Whereas when they did this, it was especially the ancient evil creature. I forgot, is it Shigora? Yeah, is that how you say it? Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know how all the character names. I'm sure I misspell He-Man character names all the time. So I'm not the biggest fan of this episode, but I do like it a little bit because it was the basis of this really, really funny. It's a super old He-Man parody called He-Man and the Quest for the Chicken. It was in 3 parts, and I think at least some of the parts are on YouTube. Some of them have been taken down over the years, but I don't usually go for the He-Man parodies very often, but that one was really, really funny, and I liked it. Oh, God. Although it wasn't uncommon for He-Man and his gang to spare the lives of their foes, it was the first time both factions worked together so thoroughly. Yeah, that bullshit, that's Evil Seed you're thinking of. That was the first time the good guys and the bad guys worked together. Or at least Skeletor and also Witch and the Warrior. That's when Teela and Evil Lynn worked together. I'm sure Witch and the Warrior, it has to be here. I would be very surprised. Rainbow Warrior. All right, yes, I approve this choice. Yes, this was number 2 on my revised top 10, and I do think that this is easily the best episode in season 2. So this is when Queen Marlena goes and kicks the bad guys' asses. And I just love it because it is a kind of a lead-on. It's kind of a follow-up. It's one of the 2 follow-up episodes to Teela's quest from season 1. So this kind of follows up on like Queen Marlena's, because in that we are shown how Queen Marlena came to Eternia. So in that regard, I definitely approve of this. So 7.6... Again, I think the rating system, again, I have to remember that these are aggregate ratings, but they always seem either too low or too high. I don't know, it's whatever. Orko's new friend is this high? Okay, don't get me wrong. I do think this is a fun episode. I was under the impression that people did not know this episode very well because this Squanch. Yeah, this is how I think his name is supposed to be spelled as well. Yeah, Squanch. So this is the okay, but I have mentioned before that this is the title of this episode is actually a misnomer in my view because it's Orko's childhood friend. Yes, his old friend. Yeah, they pointed out immediately there. What? Orko was always a popular character with younger fans in the series despite his constant tomfoolery and often grating voice. I don't remember Orko having a grating voice. Are you kidding me? Orko's wonderful. I think honestly, Cringer during season 2, Cringer's voice got a bit grating, to be honest. But yeah, I highlighted this also in one of my other top 10s. It was the one-off villains one, but I was talking about the slave master, who's the one-off villain in this episode, and that was actually a really cool one that I approved of. The Cat and the Spider. I mean, that is a good episode. I wouldn't necessarily say it's one of the best of all time, but yeah, Katrina is really the reason. Whoa, I don't remember that freeze frame. I guess that has to be when Battlecat, like, brings them down. That has to be, like, one of those blink and you'll miss it moments. Although I haven't watched the episode in a long time. Maybe I should. Yeah. I mean, this is a really good one because they really, I think they did it exactly. This actually could have been a slightly goofier episode, and they kind of focused on making it kind of very serious, as opposed to Save Skeletor. I think this was a Larry Titilio script, and to Save Skeletor was a Paul Dini script. I might be wrong, but I seem to recall that was the way. Okay, that is wrong. Katrina, it says down here. That is not the character's name. It's Katrina. Come on. They even say Katrina. I know. I get the names wrong sometimes, but they definitely say Cat and not Katrina. Yeah. And this episode, yeah, I don't have a lot of things to complain about. I mean, obviously, I don't like Web Store, and this was kind of like his series debut. Although I'm not sure. This is where we get to the confusing thing because I have the American box set for the second season, but I have the European DVDs for the first season, and the European DVDs they've just put in the production order. They didn't put them in the chronological order. So this could be Web Store's debut episode. Actually, I'm pretty sure it is. I don't think he was in any of the really early episodes. And then after this, he appears in the Dragon episode. What the heck was that called? Disappearing Dragons. And maybe the Lost City one, but I'm not. Or the City of Stone or whatever it was. That other one. It was in the Cobra Khan episodes compilation. Though that's where that came about. I mean, this is a decent episode, don't get me wrong, but I'm a little surprised that this is one of the top ranking ones. The Dragon's Gift. Okay, I can definitely see why. The writing, this is one of the best season one, this is one of the season 1 episodes with the best writing, I think the story direction. But again, I never put this in any of the top 10s specifically because I think the animation direction, this was still relatively early. This is during like the first quarter of the series. Within the first half of the first season. And it unfortunately does show that the animation work is a little slipshotty on this one. A particular sore point for me is is when Tila and Skeletor have their little sword fight with each other. That always looked really, really awkward. And I do think there's a few and Tolomar, who was a tree precon. It was a leprechaun, but he protected trees. He was animated a little iffily, but this is a really fun episode because Skeletor does appear at the very beginning, but then there really is no villain for the rest of this, and I do think this is a great introduction to Granomir, who is one of the best characters that they introduced in the cartoon show. But if I'm brutally honest, I do think The Return of Granomir is a better episode just because the animation quality was so much better. That's in the latter half of season 1. Actually, yeah, it's one of the final it's almost like it's like within, not one of the 5 last episodes, but within the 10 to 15 final episodes. That's where Return of Granomir is. But I do like the writing. I can definitely see why people. I mean, this kind of shows, I guess, that He-Man fans appreciate the writing. There's that always that awkward balance with He-Man, and I've noticed it a little bit with the New Adventures of He-Man. People have probably noticed if you've watched the 60-second He-Man reviews, is that the ratio of good animation and good storytelling, how it doesn't always like come together. Unfortunately, that it seems like the really dumb or simplistic storylines, they always get like the best animation, and then when they would have actually really interesting stories, then somehow the episode direction's a bit slipshotty. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is a bad episode by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that the animation is a little rough around the edges because it's an early episode from Teela's Quest. Yes, I have a review of this one. And, yeah, I can definitely understand why this is most people's favorite. And it is a really good episode. It is definitely, it's a Paul Dini script once again. So the thing is, like, I don't think there's a single episode here yet where I would criticize the writing at all. Yeah, these are, well, maybe Cat and the Spiders may be a little iffy, but it's okay, it's okay. But yeah, these are mostly like episodes with really, really good writing. The problem I have with Teela's Quest is that Merman is the bad guy, so I know that seems very petty of me, but it just bothers me a lot. And it does rub away from the moment. This is also why this episode never made it into my top 10s. But this is definitely like honorable mention territory. This is almost top 10 material for me. Like it's very close to being on there, and definitely it's a must-see episode. If you're gonna get into He-Man, you're gonna have to watch this at some point, because this of course reveals the whole background of Teela, where she comes from, and everything. All right, yes. Okay, so here we go. Evil Seed. Okay, I'm curious now. Okay. One such character, Evil Seed, plant-based villain who nearly conquered Eternia in its eponymous episode. His plan to rule the planet is overrunning it with plans fixed both by He-Man and Skeletor, who had to join forces to defeat him. So, I don't know. Maybe he was talking, when he was talking about the first time that the heroes and the villains joined forces. I think what he's talking about is that scene where it was He-Man, Fisto, and was it Trapjaw? No, Trapjaw, but Whiplash. They like gang up on Shigora and they're pulling on his tentacles. Which again, that's exactly the problem I have with this episode, because Shigora looks like such a fucking goofy. He just looks like a blob. He doesn't really look very menacing or anything. That's the problem I have with this episode. But yes, Evil Seed. This is top 3. I seem to recall it was at least in the top 5, but certainly the top 3 for my original top 10, and yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in the top 5 as well. I mean, Evil Seed. This is a great, and one other really great thing about this is that I remember the episode director for this episode. This was the only episode he directed, but he was a storyboarder, and he did a really, really good job. This is one of those episodes. Okay, I will say the beginning with the elves is a little silly, but it doesn't. But it's over so quickly that it doesn't really wreck the episode. Like with Cat and the Spider, there's that really long segment when they're in the temple. That it feels a little dragged out. The only good thing about that is that we get to see Malacta, the royal archaeologist, at the start. But really almost the first third of the episode, it's a big nothing burger before Katrina shows up and tries to take back the statue. I forget what it's called. It had a really weird name. A lot of the names with the Larry DiTilio and everybody, a lot of these names came from the fact that Larry DiTilio was apparently big into Dungeons and Dragons. So a lot of these characters that he created, like Granomir and things, were people that he created for his like D&D campaigns, and then inserted them into He-Man. But we have there's quite a jump here. I wasn't paying attention to the ratings because honestly I didn't think that they mattered, but we go from 7.7 here to 7.8 to 7.8 to a full 8. So now we're sorry, my voice cracked. Okay, Battle Cat. I mean, I reviewed this. This is one of those origin story episodes. Yes, this was in a 2-for-1 with the origin of the sorceress. And don't get me wrong, I like the first half of this episode. I think the first half of Battle Cat is excellent. That's the part where we find out the origins of where Cringer came from. But then the second half is the reason I almost always just forget everything else about this episode, because it's just some evil ancient monster, and then they seal it in a tomb, and it's a bit too generic. It's a DC Fontana script, though. That's something that I kind of forgot to mention. DC Fontana, if you don't know, was a big name on the Star Trek the original series. So don't get me wrong, like, yeah, He-Man had some really talented script writers and things, but honestly, this is a very unfocused episode. That's one of the things that I've never really liked about it. Not a bad episode, but it's I hate to say this, but it's honestly a bit of a mediocre episode, because only one part of the episode is really interesting. So that's my gripe with it. I'm sorry. Lots of people seem to have liked this, because for it to have an 8.0 means a lot of people had to give it like really high scores. Like, this might be some people's favorite episode. So sorry, don't mean to disparage if you like these episodes, and that's never my intention anyway with it. I always think that you should always watch the episode first before you watch or read a review of it. Into the Abyss. Now this is an interesting one, and I kind of low key agree with this, because this is one of the best. I think this might be. Okay, sorry, I can't lie. Not So Blind. Not So Blind is the best He-Man episode that has no villain. That's where He-Man and Ram-Man are temporarily blinded, and then Luce, helps them get out of the wilderness. Luce is the blind kid in that episode. But this would be my second. Yeah, this would be my second favorite episode that has no bad guy. So this is the one where Teela falls into the pit of Grayskull, and the heroes have to go rescue her. And this does have a low-key reference to Teela's quest, because Teela hears the sorceress in her head and thinks it's her mother, which is cool. It's a very low-key episode. My biggest problem really is that it's a bit dramatically. It kind of just ends. It's one of those episodes that it doesn't really have an arc. It's Teela falls down. She breaks her arm. We do see the transformation. What happens during He-Man's transformation sequence, which is all the shiny balls going up. I'm not really a big fan of that, because I've always thought of the He-Man transformation sequence. I don't think the transformation, and in any series that has a transformation, I don't think it's something that literally happens. I don't think He-Man teleports in front of Castle Grayskull every time. I think the visual of Grayskull being behind He-Man is more of a symbolic thing. I do think that He-Man gets those bolts of energy that come to him. That might be real. And that's why Adam has to, always hide his transformation. But yeah, the fact that it literally surges from the pit, it's visually kind of cool, but it's a little bit much in my view. But I do like the other parts of this episode which deal with He-Man and Teela's relationship and everything. That part actually is it's an excellently written episode, definitely. And the problem with power. Oh yeah, I've been waiting for this one. 8.3. Well, I guess again it's aggregate scores. I was expecting this one to be higher, because when I saw the bump up to 8, suddenly all of a sudden all right, so I have not reviewed this episode. It is a good episode. A lot of people will say that this is kind of, in their minds, this is kind of like the true final episode of the series in a way, because it ends with He-Man literally carrying Teela into the sunset. And it's got great animation quality, and it has a pretty great plot. I talked about this when I talked about Skeletor's best plans, and the whole premise of the episode is that He-Man thinks he's killed somebody fighting Skeletor, and gives up the power sword, and then Teela goes on a suicide mission at the end. That's why He-Man then decides, or Adam decides, okay, I gotta get the sword now and save Teela, because I don't want her to die. So there are some very serious, really good themes in this episode, and that's why I would want to like it. But that scene where He-Man and Skeletor have their little fight where then the big stone thing falls down and that guy is pretending to be dead. It's actually it's from the wait, not the arena, is it? Actually, yes, yeah, the arena. In the arena, we saw those dinosaur dudes that Skeletor hires, and they one of those guys comes back for this episode, and he's the guy who's pretending to be dead there. So when He-Man is chasing Skeletor around the big stone thingy, it just looks so bad. It's the same problem I have with To Save Skeletor, is that the episode direction, even though it shows this scene where, Adam does we see the reverse transformation. So this actually might be the only episode where we see He-Man turning back into Adam. And I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of it. It actually isn't that great. But the shading on this, when he drops the sword into the pit, that scene is excellent. But that scene of He-Man and Skeletor chasing each other around like that, it looks so goddamn goofy. This is another episode where I really, really wish the episode director would have done a much better job with the episode direction. Yeah, so what do I think about that? I think this list is actually way better than the bottom 10 list, because like I said, there were some entries on that absolutely made no goddamn sense to me at all. And a lot of these are fan favorite episodes, don't get me wrong. It's just that when I've done my own top 10s and things, there have been always some caveats and things why I kind of exclude certain episodes. And it's usually that there are episodes that I'm not a big fan of watching. The only episodes here that are also on my top 10s I mentioned already: the Rainbow Warrior, Evil Seed. Is that the only ones? And and a lot of these are like some that would get pretty close. Like if Not So Blind wasn't an episode, a He-Man episode, I think Into the Abyss would have actually made it onto my top 10 pretty easily. So there you go. That's like I said, this probably wasn't as interesting as when I was talking about the bottom 10. And I didn't even read the article this time all that much. But yeah, so I guess that wraps it up for this one. I'm Hanno the Hunter Mäkinen. See you on the next one.